Alright, I'm live right now on my own channel very quickly because I have a question about my projections, and it's just way easier to talk through. Alright, I'm live right now on my own channel very quickly because I have a question about my projections, and
Oh my
it's
god,
just
wait, I got
way
that. Whoops,
easier
whoops, whoops. I'm gonna
to
get echo. Whoops, sorry about that.
mainly because so this question is regarding a couple people in Discord were asking. So like obviously I just got done with my show, and obviously I like Logano and stuff here. So we're gonna do video time. Um, obviously I like Logano and Cindric, and the thing was pointed out, or the thing, not the thing, the question that was brought up was, hey man, I see that Logano is projected with like 30 more points in the industry. Why is that? That's pretty interesting. Why is that like that? Um, and then people are like, hey, is that like full lock at that point? Is that like a 4K running back getting promoted to story level at in the NFL and everything like that? So what I want to do here is tackle this topic and explain why I do what I do. Where we're not going to be looking at a we're not gonna be looking at this specific race. I mean, obviously, Phoenix starts in 2 hours and stuff. I'm just answering this specific question with like a visual. Uh, Here, we're just gonna name shit here, just so we have like stuff here, right? Okay, so when we look at a race like Phoenix, and why I don't do uh, I don't really find median projections useful. uh, from yet again, this is just me personally speaking because this is just what I've done for years. Whether I had a Patreon, whether I was picked up at TrueDFS, whether we got merged into PayDirt, people have found my stuff useful, and I think it's mainly because I don't use median projections and stuff. I just, you know, Sheets talked about it, other people talked about like if I build based on how I think a race is going to play out. Now, some people might not like that. Some people may. I guess it's similar to like, you know, I'm trying to come up with a way to say it. Like maybe it's similar to like doing, when people are like, hey, we're making a captain lineup for Showdown. It has to tell a story, right? Why I do that with my projections through the race based on how I think each driver is going to perform, independently of most drivers, right? If I think, so and so leads a race, I think they're going to perform well. If they don't, whatever. I want to look back at the last four Phoenix races, and we can look at other short tracks as well and stuff here. But I want to show you why it looks like that. So, like, if you have drivers here, right, and the place differential is just based on where they're finishing, right? Let's give everybody here in the top seven a finishing position in the top seven, so you can visibly see what's changing with their DraftKings points here, right? So like let's just say guy starts first, finishes first. Guy starts second, finishes second. Guy starts third, finishes sixth, right? Guy starts fourth, finishes third. Guy starts fifth, finishes sixth. Guy starts sixth, finishes fifth, right? So this is where their projections lie, right? We can see right here, like just right off the bat, I think I meant sixth here. Whoops, I meant to put one here. We can see where their projections lie. All very similar outcomes right here, right? The projections at this point are very close together. Okay. The reason you see a 5 is I just have one with a salary of $10,000 just to make sure this thing worked whenever I was doing it. All the other ones have that, so disregard the fantasy points per 1,000 at the moment. We see that you have a very similar outcome between drivers up here, right? Now, what really dictates fast lap or what really dictates projections for NASCAR? That is fast laps and laps led. When we look back at the last four Phoenix races, let's just yet again going back, we're going to go from 2025 races to 2024. Okay, so you can get an idea of where people are scoring in terms of laps led, in terms of leaders. So this race here last year, the championship race, we had one driver lead 208 laps. Okay, one driver lead 54, 30, 26, 3. Just to visibly see that independently, I'm not even going to do it on anything adjusted, just to visibly see that here. Actually, I'll do it here because you can see it here. If someone leads 208 laps, that's 52 points. Okay, you lead 30, that's 7.5. You know, you lead 40, it's 10. You lead 55, that's 13. Okay, so in a median outcome, that's all ranges included, obviously, right? That's races where a driver leads 0 races. That's a race where someone leads potentially 200 races. All those ranges of outcomes, okay, can be put into here, right? Like you have a high end of 200. We'll even kind of break it down even more so we can see. So you have 200, you have 150, you have 100, you have 70, that's 45. You have 75, you have 50, you have 25, you have 10, you have 5. So we can see all the different ranges here of this. In NASCAR, if one guy leads a race, I mean, he obliterates the field in that one set of projection. This is not even including fast laps, okay? This is just based on laps led. And you can see we go from 50, 37, 25, so on and so forth. Let me make sure my mic is working here because I don't want to. NASCAR, if one guy. Okay, cool. Oh no, I got to take the TrueDFS thing off here. Let's. Oh God, hold on. Scoop. I'll put it back on. Actually, I'll fix that later. We see that these are just the ranges of laps led, DraftKings laps led, right? So we have one race here where somebody leads 252, whatever. What about this race? How many leaders do we have here? So this race we have 105, 83, 81, 34. So let's visualize that here. So we have, 105, 83, 80, 26, 20, 20.75 and 20 here. And you can see that, these ranges are getting kind of crazy really fast based on just what people can lead laps at. Okay, so we go back to a fourth race here. Another championship race. What are we seeing here? So we see one guy with 143, 107, 19, 13, a bunch of, single digits. So we have 143, 107. What does that look like? And I'm not trying to be here and beat a dead horse. That's why I like the way I do this, because I can visualize where things are at here. Okay. We look at this last one here, and then don't even bring up fast laps. So this is a race here where we had multiple different leaders spread out. Okay. 68 laps, 57, 55, 50. Okay, let's look at this one, right? So 68, 68. I don't remember what the other one was. 57, 50, whatever. 45. We'll just do that. And you can see that, okay, these guys are still rather, close in their range, right? Okay, so let's just say we have a driver that actually let's even it out, right? Median projections. We have, we'll say these top 5 drivers are the top 5 drivers on an individual slate that have the highest likelihood of leading laps. This race is 312 laps, right? So let's just say, each driver leads, 60 laps. Let's see what that looks like, right? That's kind of even. Everybody has the same distribution, right? Okay. Once we start removing that, we remove, 50 from this guy and give him to, this one here. We start having guys get blown away in projections, right? Let's just add on fast laps at this point, right? Roughly, it's a like 1 to 2 to 1 to 3 ratio of a lap led to fast laps. We'll just kind of get it. We'll get these numbers even so I can work with that. So let's say a driver leads 100 laps. He's most likely gonna get either 1 to 2 laps led, or the ratio. Is it backward? 2 to 1. 100 laps led. Anywhere from 25 to 50 fast laps. Let's just say he gets 50 of them. He's at a 92 projection right off the bat. He gets 25 right there, which most likely in situations where if this guy's leading a majority of that, he's probably going to have close to like half of those laps led be a fast lap, okay? You're very quickly getting into a range of somebody scoring 92, somewhere around those. Now, if you're new to NASCAR, we haven't seen that over the last 3 weeks, so this might be like jarring or interesting to see. This is typically what we see at most races in terms of we just look back at four. We have one race here where the highest is 68. This one's 143, 107, 105, 83, 81, 208, 52. So, what are the different ranges of outcomes here? Your highest lap leader is probably in the range of like 110 laps led. Next is probably in the range of 70. Okay, so what does that end up looking like, right? Very similar to this, probably going down more. And yet again, ranges of outcomes for each driver and how a race performs, whatever. You're probably going to have 55 here. You're probably going to have another 35 here. Regardless of what these other people run, typically if you're in a top 10 position at most tracks and you're not the leader, but you're fast, you typically get a fast lap for about every 4 to 5, 6 laps, right? So, if these guys are running 55 and 34 and stuff, the third guy, you're probably going to have 13 laps led. Next one, probably 11 fast laps, not 13, 13 fast laps, 11 fast laps, 8 fast laps, right? So you can quickly see that these guys here, the mean projection between these guys are fairly similar. It just depends on who leads, who gets the laps led. And so, the question is, or was in the Discord, hey, why do I have Logano 30 points higher projected than the industry? Because industry projections are most likely looking at, let's even find, let me make sure I don't show the projections for this one here. Let me just webcam. Hello. Let me get the grid here for this race, so we can. I'm not gonna just redo the projections and everything, but I'm gonna basically show you what is going into stuff on any individual slate, right? So let's go back here. Let's go back here. Let's go back here. Okay, so now this is an example of the slate we're looking at right now. Okay, where do people expect to finish, give or take, right? Everybody in this, everybody I'm going to list here, realistically has a good chance at a top 5. Okay, that's going to Bell. So what is that? We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus the change in the the change between 32nd and 33rd here it counts. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you give him 8th. Here, that is a top 5 performance from Christopher Bell. What is Denny Hamlin? That is that'd be 7. That's top 5 for him. William Byron, what's that? And I'm just giving him a 5th position right here, right? That's where William Byron is. This is Reddick. This is Chastain. This is Blaney. This is Larson. This is Logano, right? So that's why Cindric, Suarez, Hocevar, Barry, these guys aren't in the conversation to kill the field, because it is more likely that one of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drivers fight for a top 5 and pushes Cindric and Suarez and Hocevar and Barry out of the way, right? Or at least down the position, okay? What do their projections look like right now? All very similar, okay? Now, no site, realistically, which is yet again why I'm like the only person that does this at an established website, because it's very volatile for a user base, right? No one in their right mind would be like, okay, it could be Logano, it could be anybody, right? All the data that I look at, I think Larson's going to dominate this race. I'm going to give him 200 laps led, and then he'll have, probably 2 to 1, 100 fast laps. That's 137, right? That obliterates any safety net that the website has for a user base. It obliterates everything. The industry standard, whether it be ranges of outcomes, what they can do, whatever, is usually to roughly project everybody in a relatively safe range, right? Um, some sims have Logano dominating the race, some places don't, whatever, right? It, rough projection, even projection, probably anywhere like 25 laps led to 86, right? Somewhere around there, you know, you get it here. And even still, just on this example, that's way drastically higher than any mean projection that a website would have on it, right? You roughly normally see mean projections probably for like Logano is probably like 43, Larson is probably 48, Cindric is probably like 35, Suarez is probably 31, Blaney's probably like 47. Once we get to people who are more likely to land in top five but not lead as many laps, you get a projection, you get a mean projection that's probably closer to that. So Bell's probably closer to 46. Hamlin's probably closer to 46 as well. And so like, you end up having, yeah, Larson would probably be owned on this slate based on median outcomes for an individual driver, right? This is probably closer to what most median projections look at, right? Yet again, I can't find anything useful here for me personally. You know, we'll leave that there to keep that there. So like, how does that help me build a lineup, especially if I'm like hand building and doing stuff? What is the big difference like between why is Larson at 48? Why is Blaney at 48? Why are these guys at 46? Who's a better play? 6-7, right? Like that doesn't help at all. And if I'm not aggressive on laps led, I usually end up missing people, right? Or just not having a decent day. If I project everybody to, everybody who could be there is probably going to lead. Probably let's give everybody 40 points. That's a pretty realistic median outcome for people. Everybody who might compete today, Hamlin might show up late in the race. Bell serves late, and then we're just in the same situation again, to where, these guys look very similar, right? So, and I didn't just want to type in Discord of like, well, I hand make stuff, but that's literally what it is. So, like, I'm assuming that Logano is probably anywhere between 43 to 48 in a median projection on the industry. All I did was, yeah, Logano starting first, 312 laps, 3-hour day. He's probably going to lead 40 laps today at some point, right? Probably going to get at least 22 fast laps, or whatever, and then bam, you end up with a relatively mild outcome for Logano, but visually looking at a one uh, thing here, um, that looks very, very aggressive. When you go on the pay dirt stuff, let me show range of outcomes for a different slate. So this is one that isn't going on right now. This median, because James has built this website, right, based on stuff, this median or what says median here is based on how he's made all his sheets on other stuff. There's no reason for him to destroy his sheets, right? But when I import my data, my numbers go under median. So on this website, median is not median. This is my own projection that I use. The ceiling and floor are based on ranges of outcomes for a driver, but this median is my handmade projections that I use because people want them available on a website. That's what this is. So if you are looking at this median comparing it to another site, mine will almost always be 20 points higher on the top end for it because it's not a median. It's the data set that I'm using to build my lineups and stuff. Um, I see that nobody is in chat. Did anybody answer anything in Discord? Nope. So I'm assuming that this has answered every question and that there will be no further questions on this. Thank you for watching. See ya later.